Dear Mum, I couldn't decide what to get for Mother's Day, so I got you this card instead. I nearly got a beautiful terrarium with succulent plants at Flower Power, but then I got distracted by the indoor plants and pots. Oh, but look at those orchids, I thought. I chose a stunning pink one. And then I saw the scented candles. But brainwave! I got you a Flower Power gift card instead, so you can choose. Happy Mother's Day, Mum, from me and the garden gift people at Flower Power.
There are moments in sport that last less than a few seconds, but occupy the collective imagination for decades. They're usually moments of extraordinary beauty. A goal, a leap, the perfect shot. The kind of thing you watch back and feel it again, the same pure shock of pleasure. But sometimes they're the other kind.
Just hovers over that lines lady.
The moment where something goes irretrievably wrong.
Code violation, unsportsmanlike conduct, warning Mr. McEnroe.
Where a career bends on its axis.
That's fair. It was very intimidating at McEnroe.
Where everyone in the stadium goes very still all at once because they understand that what they're watching is history in the making.
Advantage Burnford.
And not the comfortable kind.
Code violation, racket abuse, point penalty, Mr. McEnroe.
This is one of those moments.
The question is whether or not whether I'm going to continue playing with it. If I can't play with the racket, right? This is a little crack. Does that mean there's abuse?
John McEnroe, walking back from Ken Farrar, carrying a point penalty he considers unjust. Believing he has one more step before anything serious happens. Already composing, no doubt, somewhere in the back of his mind, the press conference, where he'll be able to explain to the world that Gerry Armstrong was wrong, that the balls were terrible, that the heat was unbearable, that he was right about all of it. And then he says something. The words exist on record. They were heard by Ken Farrar, standing just a few metres away. They were heard by Gerry Armstrong, elevated in the chair. And whatever else is disputed about that afternoon, the line calls, the dead balls, the question of who knew what about the rules, the words are not in dispute.
Code violation, verbal abuse, default, Mr. McEnroe.
Whoa!
Everyone who was nearby agrees on what was said.
For what he said then, you could have gone straight into an automatic default, even if there was a fourth step. For what John said then wasn't particularly nice.
Gerry Armstrong chooses his words carefully, professionally. He doesn't repeat what McEnroe said. He never has in the decades since. But he's clear about one thing. What McEnroe said was so far beyond any defensible boundary that it would have warranted an automatic default under any version of the rules. 4 steps or 3, old code or new. The step count was almost beside the point.
And I didn't handle it particularly well, even though both of the first two, warnings that I got, I felt were totally unwarranted.
2024, Melbourne Park. John McEnroe is sitting in a chair. A comfortable chair this time. Not the chair of an umpire he wants removed. And he's talking about what happened 34 years ago, with the particular combination of candour and deflection that defines how he discusses this story.
The third one, I definitely deserved something. I'm not going to deny that. And I wasn't aware that the third one was, you're out of here. See, that's the other part. My damn agent didn't tell me they changed the rules. So that's basically what happened there.
The deflection to the agent is half serious, half joke. McEnroe knows how it sounds. He knows that a 31-year-old professional tennis player, 15 years on tour, bears primary responsibility for knowing the rules. He knows that Patrick's account, and Paul McNamee's, and Jim Courier's all point the same direction. John McEnroe simply didn't know.
McEnroe was getting a little bit frustrated because he was down a break in the fourth set, being 2 sets to 1 up. He'd had a little bit of a few words to say about a lady in the stand with a baby that was making a bit of a noise, and Gerry Armstrong had asked her to leave. So he was getting a little bit frustrated.
Peter Bellinger, tournament referee, watching from the player's entrance, having come down from his office the moment the first warning was issued. He could see the whole picture, the accumulated frustration of the afternoon, the incremental escalation, the point at which it became irreversible. A baby in the crowd making noise, more dead balls, a break of serve going against McEnroe. Every possible irritant stacking on top of the last one, building towards something inevitable. And then McEnroe bounces his racket. A crack is audible, and the machinery of the code of conduct moves into its final stage.
We both agreed that the point penalty was correct. The racket had cracked. It was quite clear that it had cracked, and there was virtually no argument in those days as to whether it was a code violation or not. It was a code violation. So we told him that the point stood. And at that stage, he wasn't happy, but he wandered back to the service line to serve.
He wandered back, unhappy. And as he walked, Ken Farrar followed a few steps behind, close enough to hear. What happened next took only seconds, but it's been analysed for decades.
It's not broken. It's broken so you can't play with it. Let's play.
Ken heard it because he was very close. So Ken called me back onto the court, and he told me what McEnroe had said. And I think by this stage, Stephen Franson might have joined us as well. And between the three of us, we agreed that it was a default situation. If you play the video of the time, I stepped on the bottom step of the umpire's chair and said to Gerry, "You have to default him."
5 words, spoken quietly from the base of the chair. Gerry Armstrong looking down, Peter Bellinger looking up. The crowd not yet understanding what is about to happen. Armstrong leans into the microphone.
Code violation, verbal abuse, default, Mr. McEnroe.
Whoa!
The words echo through the stadium and then are swallowed by something unprecedented. 15,000 people going silent simultaneously. Not the polite silence of a crowd waiting for a serve. Not the concentrated silence of a tiebreak. Something more raw than that. The silence of collective disbelief.
I'm in the umpire's chair, the 2 players are out here, and I'm announcing, and there's a total deathly silence. And I'm looking around the court and I'm thinking, how am I going to get out of here? So I just got down in the chair and ran to the nearest exit. And as I went through that tunnel, my vision looking back was John standing at the baseline, just still staring down the court, and I was gone.
The image burns itself into the record. John McEnroe standing at the baseline, not moving. 15,000 people watch on, also not moving. Gerry Armstrong is retreating, disappearing through a tunnel. Pernfors across the net, just standing there. The quiet Swede, who has played a near-perfect match, who has barely said a word for 3 sets, who is now, apparently, the winner of a 4th-round Grand Slam match that never actually finished. How do you feel about winning like that? Nobody quite knows. Nobody has ever been in this position before.
I mean, I think the realization came that, like, we got to default him. Because I don't think anybody, I'm sure they didn't want to do that, but the rules were the rules at that point. And Gerry, we see him still at all the big tournaments now, and we remember way back when he was in the chair, and one of the players here at the Labour Cup said to me, was Gerry ever in the chair? I'm like, oh yeah, Gerry was in the chair, all right. And for one of the most memorable events, certainly at the Australian Open. So you could tell that when Ken, who delivered the message to John, you're out. And John just had this look of incredulity on his face, like, I can't believe this is actually happening.
Incredulity. That's the word Patrick McEnroe uses, watching from New York, hearing about it afterward, piecing together the expression on his brother's face from accounts and footage. The silence lasts for only a brief moment. Then the crowd finds its voice. Not with the roar of a decisive point or the sustained applause of a great match well played. Something more complex. A noise like anger and confusion and disbelief all woven together. Because these 15,000 people came to see John McEnroe play tennis, not be defaulted. They came to see him win or lose, or they came to see what he would do next. They paid for all of it. What they didn't pay for was to be told the match was over midway through the fourth set. And somewhere in the corridors beneath the stadium, in the break room near the John Farnham room, Di Larkin is watching the clock.
From that point, I'm now in my break time and I'm just sitting out in the Tennis Australia area, and I still remember it vividly. I'm just in the corridor, just chatting to a few other friends going, you're just watching the clock. Where are you going? What court next? What time? And then all of a sudden, someone says, McEnroe's been defaulted. Oh my God.
She's having a break. The natural rotation of officials through a long match means Di Larkin rotated from her baseline position some time ago. She's in the corridor, talking to colleagues, living the small procedural rhythms of a line umpire's working day.
And knowing that I was part of that match and there was a code violation issued around, with me involved in it, oh my God, what's going to happen next?
This is the question everyone is asking simultaneously, in the stadium, in the corridor, in living rooms around the world where the match is being broadcast. In Paul McNamee's car on the Nepean Highway driving from the peninsula. In Patrick McEnroe's apartment in New York. What happens next when John McEnroe is defaulted from a Grand Slam? There is no precedent. Nobody has a script for this.
The media room was right next to the John Farnham room at that point, and it was like an invasion or a mass exodus or like an evacuation drill or something, because the media just went just crazy. Everyone just started running everywhere because I could see that, because I was actually in that corridor and going, oh my God.
In 1990, before the internet, before live social media updates, before the footage could be on a phone screen in 30 seconds, journalists still worked with a specific kind of urgency. The story had just walked through the door and everyone knew it. First default in men's singles at a Grand Slam. John McEnroe, Melbourne, January 1990. That story is worth running for.
And I hear on the radio that John McEnroe looks like he's being defaulted at the Australian Open. And I just screamed, he doesn't know the rules! He doesn't know the rules! I stopped the car immediately outside the Frankston Hotel on the Nepean Highway, raced into the bar and had at the pub to have a look what was going on. John's just standing there like this. Like, he doesn't know the rules. He doesn't know the rules.
Paul McNamee, on the road, hearing it on the radio. He doesn't know the rules. He stops the car outside the Frankston Hotel, races into the pub to find a TV, and he watches McEnroe standing at the baseline, frozen, and he knows, with perfect, agonising certainty, exactly what has gone wrong. Because he knows about the Hopman Cup. He knows about the old rules. He knows that 3 weeks ago, he and Peter Bellinger made a compassionate decision that has now made all of this worse.
He didn't know the rule. I knew he wouldn't know the rule because at Hopman Cup he played, which was just before the Australian Open, he played under the old rules, and I knew he would have assumed from Hopman Cup that he had 3 lives. He didn't. He got defaulted, and I'm still guilty about that to this day, and so I do feel it was my fault, not John's.
Still guilty, decades later. The weight of a decision made with the best of intentions to keep a match alive, to avoid a nightmare on New Year's Eve, to be compassionate rather than correct. That compassion became the thing that made the Australian Open default inevitable. Back in the stadium, the crowd is discovering that nothing is going to unhappen. No supervisor is going to walk back on court and reverse the call. No McEnroe, arms spread wide, is going to appeal successfully to the gallery and find some technicality that makes this go away. It's done. He's out. And so, tournament director Colin Stubbs faces the awful challenge of filling a centre court that paid to see John McEnroe and now needs to be told they'll be watching someone else.
I had to sort of get a bit debriefed and go, well, what's happened? Because I wasn't on court and I wasn't watching on TV, like what's happened next? And then people sort of filled me in a little bit.
That's magnificent.
And I did get called into the chief umpires, we called it the fish bowls, and they decided, no, I'd be good, I could go back on court. There was a subsequent match. Rachel McQuillan was playing, and I continued with my rotations, and my memory is that I did go onto that court because I'd done nothing wrong. I called the ball out as I saw it.
Well, it was great court coverage from Rachel McQuillan coming to the net. This is her favourite shot, the backhand down the line, and then she covers.
She continues. She did nothing wrong. She made her call correctly. She held her composure through one of the most extraordinary episodes of intimidation ever seen at a major. But the crowd that greets her is not the crowd she saw an hour ago.
But I do recall that crowd we were not happy. They just wanted John McEnroe back, and they were not kind to the chair umpire. They were not kind to line umpires when we walked on court. They got booed and everything, and it's all the snowball effect.
They boo the chair umpire. Not because of anything the chair umpire has done. This is a different official and a different match. Rachel McQuillan playing on the court that is still warm from the afternoon's earlier drama. They boo because, well, there is no one else to boo. Because John McEnroe is somewhere in the bowels of the stadium, collecting his racket bag, contemplating a press conference. Because the match they paid for is gone. The anger has to go somewhere, and it goes towards the chair. And Peter Bellinger, standing by the players' entrance, watches it all with the detached composure of a man who has just done something that history will not let him forget, and who knows clearly and without drama that he had no other choice.
And after that, of course, the crowd was not very happy, and I have very little recollection of what I did or what the rest of us did. But we obviously walked off the court, and I'm not sure that we walked off together. I think we probably didn't. But the crowd erupted, and they were not very happy. I mean, in those days, with McEnroe, people came to see him challenge authority. They didn't come to see him play tennis. And they loved that. I mean, good box office for tennis, I guess. It brought people in. But they came to see McEnroe challenge authority. There's no doubt about that. And they were very unhappy that he was defaulted.
Peter Bellinger has thought about this for a long time. It's an extraordinary admission, not about McEnroe specifically, but about what his presence at a tournament actually meant. Not just the tennis, the theatre, the confrontation, the moment where the great maverick squares off against the establishment and the crowd gets to pick a side. That afternoon, the establishment won. Perhaps for the first time.
Does it affect how you feel about the Australian Open? It's really early to say. I mean, I was defaulted like 10 minutes ago, and I don't feel good about it. But I hope, a year from now it might be different. Who knows? I mean, I think in general the people have been nice. There's always those people in the crowd that egg you on and stuff, and that's the part that's difficult, but that's just tennis right now. That's just the way they want everyone to be robots and to handle all that.
The press conference is held quickly. McEnroe goes first, then the officials. Everyone who is expecting John McEnroe to walk into a room full of journalists and erupt, to turn the default into another performance, another confrontation, another chapter in the long story of McEnroe versus authority, is surprised. He's calm, circumspect, almost quiet.
Why have you been so successful in keeping your temper under control the whole time? Why today? Well, I don't know. I really don't know. I think it was some frustration. People I let things rattle me more, and also he was playing tougher, and I wasn't happy with my own game. I never felt comfortable. The balls were completely different today than they were the whole week. Totally dead today. It was like a dead set of balls, and I let the little things frustrate me. And then it just all sort of built up.
The press conference on January 21, 1990 is one of the stranger footnotes to this story. The most combustible player in tennis, having just been ejected from a Grand Slam in the most dramatic circumstances the sport had seen, sitting before cameras and being reasonable.
Did the crying baby up the back worry you, John?
Well, I'm certainly understanding to that situation, crying babies. But as far as, it's a little bit disconcerting. I mean, I don't feel like, I feel bad for the baby, that's all. And also, I just think it's unnecessary. I mean, when a little baby's like less than a year old, I mean, it's a little bit difficult to concentrate.
I don't think John's a bad person. And I think with the benefit of time, you players, and John's very much one of these, then I felt like this as a player too. When your emotions on court get up, it's like you got high blood pressure, goes, and you can feel this tension and the adrenaline. By the time he got off, they gave him enough time. That adrenaline's out, and he's smart. And he's worked his way through it, and he's gone, the only way I think that I can get out of this is to accept what happened. I was the one that made the mistake.
I mean, sure, it'd be nice if everyone got together, but what is that going to change at this point? It's over with. I'm sure there's some people that are happy about it. Other people, hopefully, feel bad for me, and life goes on.
I think the more you get to know John, the more time you spend around him, as I have now done later in my broadcasting career, you understand him because you see what happened that day. Because he's actually a nice person, he's actually a very intelligent person, and he accepted that moment, which I think made him even a better player. And people actually had a different type of respect. A lot of people, McEnroe, bad boy, bad behaviour. But this was a moment of actually maturity. And I think a lot of people were happy to see that.
And now, unfortunately, it just shows you that the players don't have any more power. This isn't any different. I mean, they're still, these people think that that's, this is for the good of the game or something. I don't know. I mean, but I don't think that when you look back on this, you're going to think that this was good for the game.
McEnroe could have made it worse, much worse. He could have gone into that room and turned the press conference into an assault on the officials, on the rules, on the Australian Open, on the entire apparatus of a sport he felt had been trying to constrain him for 15 years. He didn't. Maybe the shock was too great. Maybe the realisation, arriving fully only then, sitting in the press conference room with the cameras pointing at him, that he had genuinely not known the rules, that he hadn't been pushed out unfairly, but had walked into this with his eyes closed. Maybe that was simply too deflating to turn into a performance.
I was surprised. I didn't realize that it was that. I thought he was going to say game. If I was, I looked up and I said, uh-oh, they're going to take a game from me now. And then all of a sudden they said default. And then I suddenly thought to myself that maybe I wasn't aware that they had changed the rules. And now I'm certainly more aware of it.
Look, ultimately, the player's got to be aware, but you've got a manager could have told him, or you just don't think it's going to happen, do you? I mean, ultimately, it's the player's responsibility, but I felt really bad for him. He's a smart guy, and he wouldn't have gone over the edge and had the third infraction if he'd known he would have been defaulted. He wouldn't have done that. So I knew he was caught out. He was very good in the media conference. He didn't blame anybody. He blamed himself.
Paul McNamee still marvels at this, speaking about it 35 years later, because it wasn't what anyone expected. And it wasn't perhaps what McEnroe himself expected to say. But sitting there, having been ejected from a tournament he'd never won in the year he had the best chance of winning, on a default rather than a defeat, for something he genuinely didn't understand was happening. What could you do except accept it?
Dear Mum, I couldn't decide what to get for Mother's Day, so I got you this card instead. I nearly got a beautiful terrarium with succulent plants at Flower Power, but then I got distracted by the indoor plants and pots. Oh, but look at those orchids, I thought. I chose a stunning pink one, and then I saw the scented candles. But brainwave! I got you a Flower Power gift card instead, so you can choose. Happy Mother's Day, Mum, from me and the garden gift people at Flower Power.
While McEnroe is in the press conference, the officials are elsewhere, trying to get another match onto court, trying to settle a crowd that doesn't want to be settled. And Gerry Armstrong is trying to find his way out of a building he no longer recognises.
I got lost out the back because I went through an area where I hadn't a clue where I was, and I don't know where I ended up, in a canteen or something, and had to find my way back to the officials area.
Gerry Armstrong, one of the most respected officials in the history of professional tennis, wandering through the service corridors of Flinders Park, lost, unable to find his way back, still processing what just happened. There's something unexpectedly human about this image. The man who just made the most significant call in Grand Slam history, who did it precisely and professionally and by the book, getting lost in the corridors afterward. He and Ken Farrar eventually found their way back, and then they dealt with what came next.
I can just remember Ken feeling for us, because none of us wanted to do this. It's not something you go on court thinking, well, this is what's going to happen. But you've got to do what you've got to do. And Ken was very supportive afterwards, and we had to be supportive to Ken as well. So it was a bit of a team effort.
I think it's a very sad situation when a player gets defaulted. I mean, this is a very, very difficult decision to make, and nobody wants to do this. It's a bad image for the game. It just doesn't help anything. But unfortunately, when these things happen, action has to be taken to prevent it from happening in the future, hopefully.
3 officials, Armstrong, Farrar, Bellinger, each doing their job, each following the rules they were there to enforce. None of them wanting this outcome, all of them knowing it was the only possible one.
We had a publication printed, and it said, attention, 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 and it listed all the changes of the rules that were going to be used at this tournament. It included the 25-second time violation, it included the 3-step code, and several other things regarding dress codes, which are minor things. This was published by the tournament. It was distributed to the players. It was put in the locker room. It's no secret. And as a matter of fact, it's in the Grand Slam rule books, would have been made available to the players, and it's also in the ATP Tour book, which has been made available to the players. And the players have been playing under this in Wellington, Auckland, Sydney, Adelaide. So it shouldn't come as a heck of a surprise.
And then the phone calls started. Because not everyone watching that afternoon in Melbourne, and not everyone watching around the world, especially in America, where McEnroe was famous and beloved and where 15 years of outrage had made him a cultural touchstone, not everyone felt the same way about what had happened.
I was supposed to finish just after that match. So the people at the tournament didn't want to not have me do another match, because that wouldn't have looked great if Gerry defaults John McEnroe and he's gone. So there was a plan for me to do a match the next day, to extend my stay by day and do the match. And I pitched up in the morning, and there were a lot of solemn-looking faces there going, we're not sure what we're going to do today, because they had death threats. If I was in the umpire's chair, I would be dead. I don't know how they were going to do it, but they took it very seriously.
Death threats against Gerry Armstrong. Specific enough that they gave him, as Gerry Armstrong says with the particular dry humour that marks his account of all of this, a day off.
Yeah, the powers that be took that death threat quite seriously, because apparently the source it came from was a viable source. I don't know any more than that, but yeah, I got a day off, so it was nice. I went down St Kilda Beach, I think.
Gerry got a bit of flack. We had to give Gerry a police escort for the next 24 hours until it all died down.
A police escort for 24 hours for a tennis umpire who enforced the rules at a 4th-round match of a Grand Slam. This is what John McEnroe meant to people. Not just to tennis fans, to everyone. His fame had crossed entirely out of sport into culture. The man who had spent 15 years being the most famous bad boy in the world, the most recognisable face in tennis, his default was not just a sports story, it was news. And for some people, it was an outrage. Peter Bellinger, for his part, received a different kind of correspondence.
I never got any death threats, and I don't think Ken Farrar got any death threats. I did get quite a lot of mail from the United States saying it was about time that you'd done this, So a lot of people in the US who had been watching were quite happy that he'd been defaulted.
Two pools of reactions. The fans, who felt robbed, and the observers, who felt justice had arrived. Both of them real. Both responding to something true about what McEnroe represented. And Larkin, the one person whose presence at the centre of it all has been visible to every viewer of the footage, the woman whose face is on every front page, experiences her own strange version of the aftermath.
We didn't have mobile phones then, we didn't have social media, and then I do recall I got a phone call off on the good old landline from my sister Heather, going, "Are you okay? I've just watched Channel 9 News and I'm sure that's you, I said, "Yep, it's me." And, "Are you okay? Are you okay?" Yeah, I'm okay.
Larkin is given a rostered day off on the Monday and feels the weight of being suddenly, anonymously, famous.
I just recall going out to Knox City Shopping Centre. I was staying out there and I just felt the eyes of the world were on me, like everyone was going to recognise me and she's that lady. And at no stage in any media reports is my name mentioned. In everything that subsequently followed after that. So I was like, I'm on the front page of The Age, there's my picture, but I'm in every, talk show or whatever, but there's absolutely nothing because they could have said my name to the media. They could have, but they didn't.
Her name is never mentioned. And she is simply that lady, the one with the sunglasses, the one McEnroe stared down. For years afterward, whenever Larkin tells people she's a tennis official, the first question is always the same.
Have you ever been abused by John McEnroe? And everyone has an opinion on it because it was so out there in the media, so out there, and it was at that time anyone that followed tennis had seen it, these outbursts at various tournaments. So as soon as I would disclose that, yes, I'm a tennis umpire, that would be the first question. Have you been abused by McEnroe? And my answer was, well, not yet.
35 years later, Larkin can laugh about it. The line carries the particular composure of someone who sat perfectly still while the world's most famous athlete stood 2 feet away from her and the whole world watched, and who held herself together so completely that people assumed she wasn't really afraid. She was. She just didn't show it.
As an official, I'm not to say anything unless I'm asked a question. So he didn't ask a question. He didn't say anything. I'm not trying to be, wow, I'm amazing. It's part of our training is, we've almost got to sit there and cop it. And all I could do was, in my mind, just stare ahead, hold your composure, look straight.
In the days and weeks and decades that followed, the questions never entirely go away. Was it fair? Was the rule change adequately communicated? Should the players, McEnroe specifically, have been personally notified that the 3-step code was coming into effect? In a world before smartphones and email, where tournament communications still travelled by memo and conversation, how sure can anyone be that the message reached everyone who needed to hear it? And then, whose fault is it?
My understanding is that the rule change was not brought in for John McEnroe. A lot of the players, I believe, thought that the 4-step stage, with the 3rd step being a game, that if they lost the game, that they may as well be defaulted. And I think there was a lot of discussion within the players group and the ATP at the time And that brought about the change of the rule. That's my understanding of it. And any rule changes that were brought into effect took effect from the 1st of January of the following year.
John McEnroe. He claims he didn't know. And the people closest to this story, the ones who know McEnroe best, who watched him for years, who sat in chairs while he argued with them, believe him. Not because they think he's above using ignorance as a defence, but because the specific nature of his expertise makes the ignorance plausible. McEnroe's genius was tactical. He understood the code not as a document to be studied, but as a terrain to be navigated. But that kind of practical knowledge has a specific blind spot. It doesn't update automatically when the document changes.
And to this day, John blames his manager. The general feeling when John got defaulted was one of shock because he just seemed to be someone who was bulletproof. Because he typically understood the rules, because he knew how far to push things without getting disqualified, the fact that he finally got taken off the court was a real shock to everyone, and most of all to John. John was the most surprised of anybody. I think all of us sort of thought, well, he may have had that coming. He's been pushing people for a long, long time. But John, again, a great lawyer on the court, he knew just how far to take the judge without getting tossed out of court.
And it's not just about the rules. Patrick McEnroe, coming from a family where understanding documents and contracts was essentially a professional obligation, brings a dimension to this that nobody else can.
His IQ is very phenomenal, not just his tennis IQ. So John prided himself on understanding, what he could get away with and then how not to go over the line. And our dad, who was a practicing attorney for many years, that was his job, was a stickler for those kind of things. And he would read the contracts that we both had in tennis, and that was what my dad was known for in his job. He was the guy that would go through all the contracts, all night and then make corrections. So suffice to say, my dad wasn't too pleased when that happened.
There's a specific quality of disappointment that a detail like that carries. Not the rage of the crowd or the professional irritation of the officials. Something quieter and more personal. A father who prided himself on attention to detail, watching his son lose a Grand Slam tournament because he didn't read a memo.
Ken Farrar ultimately made the decision, and it was a big thing in his career. He was the guy that defaulted John McEnroe. And, the officiating community thought that was justice. And look, John should have been defaulted on other occasions. It's true. I mean, you can't say it wasn't in the end that John finally got what he probably deserved. And John would admit that he could have been defaulted other times. I mean, that's absolutely true. But this was the Australian Open. It was maybe his last chance to win it.
This was his Australian Open. McEnroe had 3 comfortable first-round wins. His draw was favourable. Yannick Noah was the likely 4th-round opponent, a player McNamee is confident McEnroe would have beaten. Beyond that, a realistic path to the final. And beyond the final, the one Grand Slam title that had always eluded him. The Australian Open. The one he never won. The Australian Open. The one he never won. This was the year, and he knew it. Patrick knew it, McNamee knew it, even Gerry Armstrong knew it. This was John's big chance, he said before a ball was struck. And then 15,000 people fell silent, and Gerry Armstrong ran for the exit. And John McEnroe stood at the baseline, staring. And the tournament went on without him.
I felt it was rough because John did get one violation for swearing under his breath that there's no way the crowd, in my opinion, or TV would have been able to hear that he did swear. He did say something to Ken Farrar, there's no doubt about it, which obviously wasn't nice. But I felt it was a bit man-to-man, that was what I felt, and not really for the audience or TV.
The rules don't care about volume. The rules don't care whether the crowd heard. The code of conduct applies simply to what was said, not to how widely it was broadcast. But McNamee's instinct, the instinct of a man who always sided with the players, as he freely admits, is that there's something different between what you say in front of 15,000 people and what you mutter to an official as you walk back to the baseline. The officials disagree, and the officials, in this case, had the rulebook on their side.
I got a lot of good comments from players. I think that was the outcome that I took away from it, was that people were saying, yeah, it had to happen at some stage, well done. I don't think I had anybody saying the opposite. And yeah, I got quite a lot of comments from players over the next couple of months when I saw them out on the tour. We were just doing what we had to do, but I think the general feeling was it was nice. People stuck to their guns and followed the rules and did what you had to do, which is not always easy.
The reaction is consistent. Relief, almost. The relief of people who had watched someone push further and further for 15 years and had quietly wondered when the reckoning would come. Because they knew what McEnroe could do. They'd been on the other end of it. They'd stood across the net while he summoned supervisors and intimidated line judges and disrupted rhythms and used every lever available to him. They'd gotten on with their matches and said nothing. Because what could you say? He was John McEnroe. The rules bent for him. Until they didn't.
In case anyone's checking. Regrets, I've had a few. No, there's always regrets in terms of what coulda, shoulda, woulda, coulda, shoulda. I guess the fact that, I've still come here and I'm able to look at it obviously as a commentator in a totally different way is sort of fun, and get to appreciate the effort that Tennis Australia has put into this, the love of the event that you see from the people here. I missed that. I didn't sense that. I sensed that Australians love their sport and love tennis when the Australian Open's going on, but it's harder to appreciate it sort of like while you're sort of thinking, I'm playing and I'm trying to win the whole thing. So I just wasn't able to sort of, I wish a regret would be, why wasn't I able to, love the game the way Roger Federer did, the way you see young Carlos Alcaraz do it. That would be a bigger regret than not having won the tournament, even though it would have been nice, because no one asked me how many Davis Cups I won. They only asked me how many majors I won. And they don't care about the doubles or mixed. They only care about the singles.
But first, on top of the news this Sunday is John McEnroe, trying to return to his old glory as a tennis player, but unfortunately still very much equal to his old form as a sportsman. Today, a sorry first for McEnroe. He becomes the first player ever disqualified from a Grand Slam event for bad behavior. It happened at the Australian Open, where McEnroe had been playing very well. But in this fourth-round match, the fourth-seeded McEnroe was having a difficult time with Sweden's Michael Pernfors.
Should anyone have stopped this? The answers are complicated. They always are when genius and rules collide, and something has to give. But whatever happened in Melbourne that January afternoon, whatever combination of dead balls and summer heat and rule changes and accumulated fury brought it to that moment, one thing is clear. It changed everything. Next time on Snap.
We came together at a tournament in Brussels fairly soon after, and it didn't end well.
I've had several conversations with John McEnroe, but never about that incident. And we've always been on reasonably good terms.
It would have been preferable had I won one. At the same time, it made me maybe a better person, hopefully.
Amazing. Literally, your tournament director is there coddling your player to make sure that he comes back the next year. That's how much power and importance that John has brought to the game in his career.
Snap is an AO Originals podcast with Backchat Studios. Written and edited by Lochlainn Harte. Narrated and produced by Jon Hoevenaars. Supervising producer is Adrian Houghton. Original interviews by Shannon Davis. Recorded by Marcus Buttigieg. Executive producer is Xavier Muhlebach.
Dear Mum, I couldn't decide what to get for Mother's Day, so I got you this card instead. I nearly got a beautiful terrarium with succulent plants at Flower Power. But then I got distracted by the indoor plants and pots. Oh, but look at those orchids, I thought. I chose a stunning pink one. And then I saw the scented candles. But brainwave! I got you a Flower Power gift card instead. So you can choose. Happy Mother's Day, Mum. From me and the garden gift people at Flower Power.